is Don Tony. Don Tony is a compassionate human being.
If I was employed with TNA right now, I would say,
That's the way you dress your employees?
no, well, you gotta look at it like this.
Don Tony is a sportsman.
I fucking use as a frisbee. I chucked it at the down the block the other day just for fun.
Don Tony is an articulate speaker.
Blah 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 blah. Oh!
Don Tony is a food connoisseur.
When the McRib first came out, I had it. It was delicious. I ate like 5 of them, I remember, in like a 2-day span. The thing was that after a couple of weeks of the McRib, like the newness about it wore off. Wasn't as exciting anymore. And, and then I found myself, at McDonald's saying, give me a double quarter pounder with cheese. And I wasn't really into the McRib anymore.
So this year, when you go to the voting booth, think of a real American. Think Don Tony for presidency.
Blah, 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 blah.
It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now...
All right, I think we fixed it.
It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
All right. I honestly have no idea what the hell that was all about. Oh, boy. I'm telling you, I've been doing video here online now for a couple of years. And we have had audio drop on me because I open up the browser and I'm kind of like watching videos, and sometimes the browser takes priority of the sound card and it'll disable it from the streaming program. I've never gone live without checking the browser and doing nothing, and in the middle of an intro, it just freezes completely. So on the replay, I'll edit out the first 5 minutes of whatever you guys saw out there. But I don't know. Is it kind of like a preface of maybe we shouldn't talk about politics tonight? I don't know. I mean, all I wanted to do was just play an old school intro. I mean, you guys remember this intro from 2008? I think it's, right here.
Who is Don Tony? Don Tony is a compassionate human being.
If I was employed with TNA right now, I would say, hey,
That's the way you dress your employees?
no, well, you gotta look at it like this.
Don Tony is a sportsman.
I fucking use it as a frisbee. I chucked it at the down the block the other day just for fun.
Don Tony is an articulate speaker.
Blah, 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 blah. Oh!
Don Tony is a food connoisseur.
When the McRib first came out, I had it. It was delicious. I ate like 5 of them, I remember, in like a 2-day span. The thing is that after a couple of weeks of the McRib, like the newness about it wore off. Wasn't as exciting anymore. And, then I found myself, at McDonald's saying, give me a double quarter pounder with cheese. And I wasn't really into the McRib anymore.
So this year, when you go to the voting booth, think of a real American. Think Don Tony for presidency.
Blah, 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 blah.
That's all I wanted to do. Stupid open with that, and the audio froze, man. I honestly don't know what happened. And my apologies to everybody who's live that got that glitch for like the first 4 minutes. I literally was like, oh my God, this would be the absolute wrong day for us to have everything blow. But anyway, we're here. They're not going to stop us, whoever is trying to do that. Welcome everyone to your latest edition of The Sit Down, hosted by yours truly, Don Tony. It is November 3rd, 2024. Hope everyone is having a great weekend. I have gone out of my way for several years now to keep politics off the shows. Unless it's newsworthy or wrestling has a tie to it. And in 48 hours here in the United States, they're going to determine who our next president is going to be. And, it's just, I had to put a poll out earlier today to ask you guys, do we talk about it at all, or do we act like nothing is going on? And I think it was like 65% of you said, let's talk about it. Now, I'm not going to get into specific policies on either side, unless somebody, wants to make me an offer they can't refuse. And I say that jokingly, but I do want to say this. And this, I think every single one of you out there who's a wrestling fan probably would want to hear my opinion, because it's just an opinion. You disagree with it, I respect that. You agree with it, I respect that too. But I will tell you this. I totally am fine if you're going to vote for Kamala Harris. I'm totally fine if you're voting for Donald Trump. I'm totally fine if you don't vote for anybody. I'm totally fine if you write me in as in the ballot. But here's the thing that has really disturbed me over the last couple of weeks, especially. Number one, I have said this for a long time, and this election especially, and even, 2020 as well. I do not listen to anybody out there in the sports world, wrestling world, entertainment world, political world, anybody out there who has made their nest egg, who has made millions, who have unless they totally piss their money away stupidly, they got that opportunity. They've already made it. And you're not going to tell me what to do, what not to do when you already made your shit. You could give a flying fuck who ends up becoming president. Obviously, everybody has their preferences, but I don't listen to people who have already got their money. Another thing that really upsets me also about the election is, the idea that if you vote a certain way, whichever side it is, you're this, you're that, you're this. I think it's more towards the Trump side, that if you vote for him, then you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a Nazi, you're this or that. And, this is not just naive, engagement farming, lonely, stupid people on the internet saying this. This is very, very, very important people and people with voice saying this. And the problem is, no matter which side you're on, there's a lot of very sick people in this world. And when you say things, there's an old phrase, words matter. just because the words you spew out are towards people that you dislike doesn't make it any less damaging. And there is a shitload of damage going on up until November 5th. And it doesn't end November 5th. Whether Kamala Harris becomes president or Donald Trump becomes president, there's going to be a boatload of hate. There's going to be a lot of it. There's going to be a lot of name calling. There's going to be a lot of labeling, a lot of profiling, a lot of hate. And there is absolutely nothing that any of us are going to be able to do about it. You know, I went on this, on social media earlier, and I wrote and I said, you know, we're going to do something on tonight's show that no one else has been able to do. And we're going to have a straight up good conversation about wrestling, AEW, WWE. And guess what? Everybody, whether you like one company or you don't, we could all talk about wrestling and have fun about it. No hate, no nothing. And we could also talk a little bit about the election, and whichever side you're on, you could feel comfortable enough that people aren't going to bias you, label you, and profile you of something that you're not. And I got DMs from people saying to me, you know, I normally tune into your shows, but I'm not tuning into this one, because the fact that you're going to even allow people who are going to vote for Trump to speak their mind makes you just as bad as they are. And I'm like, man, seriously, I don't even want to repeat what I wanted to tell these people. I didn't even answer. I just ignored them all. And of course, the turnout is going to be lower, because unless you have this really tremendous hate and bias, you know, there's no wiggle room to have a conversation. There's no wiggle room. Oh, this convicted fellow. Oh, she's not qualified. Oh, this and that. And here's the reason why I'm bringing this up. This has to do with wrestling. I have seen so many people on social media that once The Undertaker interviewed Trump, they want to cancel out The Undertaker. When Batista did what he did to endorse Kamala, you had people making fun of Batista big time. You have Tatanka earlier today, you know, which I don't even think he realizes he might have committed a crime. You're not supposed to take a selfie when you're voting. Although I think he was in a bathroom, if you look closely. And right away, he's getting hate and labeling. And listen, I care less about Tatanka, but here's my point. For every single wrestling fan that you have seen, I want you all to think about this. I don't care which side you vote, but remember this a day from now, 2 days from now, a month from now, a year from now, unless you get an apology. I want you to pay attention to all of those people, regular wrestling fans, journalists, wrestlers, former wrestlers, Hall of Famers, former managers, promoters, anybody with a voice, whether they typed it or they said it. For any of them who turned around and said, if you vote a certain way, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're this, I'm blocking you, I will not support you, you're this, you're disgusting, you're this, you're this, you're this. I want you to pay very close attention of those people. And then when they start popping for matches and popping for wrestlers that are not getting a push, who, by the way, happen to have voted Republican or voted Democrat. You see where I'm going with this? Let me go one step further. About 2 months ago, Kevin and I did an episode of the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show, and I know a lot of you will remember this conversation. And I brought up Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Now, I could care less who he votes for. The reason why I brought up Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was because he was going to be a special enforcer or referee or something for an AEW match. I think it involved Bryan Danielson. And a couple of days before, his wife was touting all over the Trump pages that Ricky is hardcore Trump and pro-Trump and this, Trump. And I said to Kev, now keep in mind, this is 2 months ago. And I said to Kev, Kev, you find it interesting that, you know, that the people who absolutely despise anybody that's associated with Trump don't like dare criticize Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for his political affiliation. And Kev's response, which was very, very smart, was, why should it matter? And I agree 100%. But my point is, look at what's transpired since then. And now you're going to have wrestlers who vote Republican. What? Because they didn't tell you out of their mouths, because they didn't do an interview, that they're not as bad as others. Let me remind everyone of all the people that told you, unfollow me, block me, I'll block you. You vote for Trump, you're a Nazi. You vote for Kamala, you're a moron. You don't care about this country. You vote for this, you vote for that. And yet they're going to gush about some of their favorite wrestlers who vote the same way. You know, it's almost like the only reason why Undertaker got so much scrutiny is because he endorsed Trump out of his mouth. Like, as long as you don't hear the person, shh. As long as my favorite wrestler doesn't tell anybody who they voted for, I'm cool with them. I want you to, and there is ways, especially if they donated to campaigns. That's the easiest way to find out. But that is what the biggest problem I have with this, because I'm watching people do that for weeks. Accuse all of you out there of being this and being that and being this because you want to vote a certain way. And yet, in the opposite, side of their mouth, they're saying, oh, this person deserves a title shot. This person deserves a push. Oh, that was an awesome match. And I'm like, you hypocritical pieces of shit. You're praising people that are voting for the way that you despise, and because they didn't publicly say it, it's cool. It's cool. And it's just so ridiculous. I want you to remember all of those people who had meltdowns, and they're going to have meltdowns on Tuesday. They're going to have absolute meltdowns on Tuesday. And I just want you to watch closely when they start talking about their favorite wrestlers who happen to vote for the person that ended up in office. So, all right. It's terrible. It's terrible. You know what I've noticed? And we'll move to wrestling. Unless you guys want to stay on that topic. I'll tell you one other thing that's terrible. What I've noticed, especially in the last couple of days, are people out there who are publicly saying they're voting one way, but quietly voting a different way. And how I even started paying attention to this was someone had asked me a couple of days ago, Ant, who are you voting for? I said, I'm voting for Adabo. I'm voting for Joanne Ariola. Those are local politicians here. And they're like, no. Who are you voting for in the presidential election? I said, as of right now, nobody. And I sent my early ballot in already. I mailed it. I requested a mail-in ballot. I got it in the mail. I filled it out. And I voted for some De La Cruz. I did not vote for Trump, and I did not vote for Kamala. And the reason why I didn't vote for either one is simple. The United States, with all due respect to my international friends out there, the United States is supposed to be the greatest country in the world. And you're trying to tell me after 8 years ago with Trump in power, after 4 years ago with the vegetable in power, sorry, that's what he is. I'm nothing personal against him, but he's a vegetable. He's a vegetable. You mean to tell me after 8 years of all this turmoil, the greatest that we have to offer is Kamala Harris, who was chosen by default because of Biden's health that was hidden, and Trump. And Trump, who did some very stupid things as president, is not as, how do I say it? Sometimes you got to show empathy and sympathy for people, even if you don't like them. And I think that's my biggest problem with him. I look at our greatest country in the world and I say, this is the best that we have to offer. what has happened with a political world in the last 8 years, especially? This is what we have to offer. It's ridiculously bad. And I'll say one last thing. You know, I see people out there, oh, I'm not gonna take away my daughter's rights to save money on groceries. But yet they want to vote for abortion. Now, me, I respect a woman's choice for abortion. I'm not against it. You know, obviously certain things we're not going there. But my point is, you hear people, oh, we need to tax the rich. We need to have the rich pay their fair share. I hope everybody has learned, going back to, and I would love if someone out there could pull her name. She was a college student when Obama ran for president. She was at the Democratic National Convention, and she was pushing for free birth control for women on health care. Maybe somebody could pull her name for me. And I've been in the insurance field since 1998. And when she went on that stage and was pushing for free birth control for women, birth control, you know, like I said to myself, I said, nothing is free in this country. And they ended up adding free birth control to health care. And within 3 weeks, some of the health insurance companies that I write with sent letters to their customers telling them that their premiums are going up $70 a month. So when I saw that, I mean, I felt bad for my customers, and I'm like, yeah, nothing is free. When you go to a diner and a diner says free French fries with your hamburger, take note that your hamburger is $13 instead of $10. Sandra Fluke, thank you very much. D without the oosh. Sandra Fluke. Nothing is free. Even if you didn't like Ronald Reagan, and we'll move on, I promise you. Even if you didn't like Ronald Reagan, I suggest you go back and Google Ronald Reagan taxes 1975. In 1975, when he was either governor or running for governor, something, he did an interview and he was talking about hidden taxes. And to me, this sums up what's so wrong with this country as far as economy-wise. He was talking in 1975, 50 years ago, that when you hear politicians say, you know, the rich need to pay their fair share, corporations need to pay their fair share, they need to pay the taxes, we need to raise their taxes. He says that even the suit that he was wearing had like 30 hidden taxes in it. The corporations and the rich will always pass the additional expense down to everyday people. So when you talk about the poor being hurt by either side, when you talk about the middle class being hurt by either side, when you talk about minimum wage going up to $20 an hour, that's wonderful and everything. And now that very same McDonald's that's paying $20 an hour for minimum wage is charging you $11 for a Big Mac. So for all of you out there, when you talk about taxing big business and rich and this and that, keep in mind that in the history of this country, we have never had a case where taxes go up in the business world and they don't raise their prices or they cut down employees. My father has a deli and he got something in the mail a couple of years ago that he was required to pay a certain amount of wage to certain people because of workers' compensation insurance. And there was a few people he had to raise their pay by $7 an hour. And what did he do? Instead of having 5 people on the counter, now he only had 3. He fired 2 people because he could not afford it. So when you see all this stuff going on, understand why every time I hear both sides promising shit like that, it is never free. Nothing is free. You know, bribing people for this and, you know, teasing this in front of their face, whatever you want to call it, you know, whether it's illegals, whether it's this or whether it's that, you know, nothing is free. In the end, everybody pays. So spare me the logic that some people try to throw out there, because I'll never forget the woman, God bless her. I'll never forget the woman in 2008 said that she was voting for Obama. She was at a gas station. I'm sure some of you remember it. And she said, I'm voting for Obama because I'm going to get free gas. There are people out there that honestly think that they're going to get free this, free that, free this. You know, it's interesting, and I don't want to go there, but it's interesting. You see Joe Rogan and Fetterman, that interview that went on, and they're talking about, you know, illegal immigration and bringing in millions of illegals, and they're being moved to certain states that they call swing states. And they're given food, they're given hotels, they're given this, they're given that, clothes, they're given cell phones. And they come to this country and they're being smothered with free stuff. Oh, by the way, could you we're going to have a vote, you know, coming up November 5th. And we gave you all this stuff and an opportunity. You know, don't forget to vote, you know, and that's what's going on. And then you see people out there that, you know, they're dangling some type of gifts or money because of ancestors being treated like dirt, you know, and for some reason it never comes to flourish. 4 years from now, it'll be brought up again, and it just goes on and on. Nothing is free in this country. It is bribery. So, yeah, even Elon Musk, you know, doing the $1 million a day, you know, all you got to do is be a registered voter and vote, and you could possibly win $1 million. You know, I just, both sides, I got a headache. And what sucks is I wish we could get to November 5th, find out who the president is, and then use the generic, now can we all try to come together and support this country? There's going to be fucking riots after this. There's going to be all bullshit going on. And there's nobody that's going to be president for at least the next 4 years that is going to bring this country together. It's going to remain shot like this. That's why I'm so thankful that we are a wrestling family here. I'm sorry for spending a few minutes talking about that, but I wanted to say that and be on record, because I want places like this to be a place where no matter what wrestling company you support or political affiliation you are, you know, you're not going to get spit on, yelled at, accused, profiled, labeled, made fun of, yelled at, put down, insulted. Because I got news for you. When people do that, they're no better than the people that they claim that they're against. So just to remind everyone, tomorrow night after Raw, Kevin and I will be live for the Don, Tony, and Kevin Capsule Show, dtkcdiscord.com. And let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about wrestling for a little while. And then if we need to come back to this in particular, we will. So, by the way, don't forget, this Wednesday, it is going to be NXT on the CW going head-to-head with AEW Dynamite. And I made this banner a couple of weeks ago. What is the ratings going to be, guys? You know, maybe you want to post it in the comment section after the show is over. You know, what do you think NXT and AEW's ratings are going to be this Wednesday? I'll tell you this much. I personally think that NXT's not going to do as good as people think they're going to do. And I know that's going to sound crazy coming from a lifelong ECW fan. Look, I will always support ECW. Very, very important part of my wrestling fandomhood growing up. And as much as I was friendly with Dawn Marie in the past and Francine, and to see some ECW legends that I haven't seen for a while, I remind myself we are in 2024. I remind myself that ECW closed down 23 years ago. I remind myself that WWE has done shit with Dawn Marie for decades. They have done GOTS for Francine. And then you plaster them on a Wednesday. That is great for Francine and Dawn Marie. Get a little bit of appreciation that they have earned in their careers. But for the casual wrestling fan watching WWE programming today, why do you think a couple of years ago, Tori Wilson came out to no reaction at all? Or some, former wrestlers came out, women, especially women. Remember Evolution? Remember the lack of reaction for some of the women that came out? And people online were like, why? How come? I can't believe this person got no pop. It's because WWE fucking ignored them for too long. So nice, you're going to bring Little Guido back on NXT for a night. You're going to bring Francine. You're going to bring Dawn Marie. That's wonderful. I'm going to watch, and I'm happy for them. But for the everyday WWE fan and the NXT fan, most of them out there are going to be like, yeah, I don't think NXT is going to do more than 710,000 viewers. I think it's going to be like 710. On AEW's side, I think it'll actually be a little bit closer than you think. I think AEW will probably do about 590, which kind of seems low, but, on a Wednesday night going up against NXT, I see NXT nudging out AEW, but by very little. So, anyway. All right, let's get into some wrestling discussion. Yes, I did see this posted earlier. I think he would have been, 80 years old? Curator Vibration. I think Bobby the Brain Heenan would have been around 80 by now. His birthday is over this weekend. Bobby the Brain Heenan, in my opinion, the greatest wrestling manager that ever lived. Paul Heyman is awesome. Paul Heyman, to me, is more of the, I don't want to use advocate because he obviously used that, but there's like the Gary Hart's, the wrestling managers that were there, like the J.J. Dillon, even though J.J. Dillon would take a little bump here and there, but those wrestling managers were more there for presence. But Bobby Heenan would just put his body out there and would just be so animated, and he would take a beating to get, the persons over that he was involved with. Bobby Heenan, just awesome, man. And some of you may remember one of the things that upset me back in the day was the Hall of Fame. You remember the final one or two Hall of Fames? And we were like, could you please invite Bobby Heenan to the Hall of Fame? And I remember at the time, some people were like, oh, maybe they did and he didn't want to go. The motherfucker showed up at every wrestling convention and every place that he was ever, booked to go. If WWE would have invited him to the Hall of Fame, look, obviously, I didn't talk to Bobby Heenan, so I don't know for sure if he said no or not, but there's nothing on record where WWE offered him to go and he declined. That motherfucker went everywhere and he would always pose with the middle finger, and he would just make light of the fact that he had that brutal cancer. And the reason why WWE didn't want to bring him to the Hall of Fame is because they didn't want you to see that face. They didn't want you to look like a horror show. At that time, they did not, it was the aesthetics about it. Really, really sad. Really sad. So yes, happy birthday, Bobby Heenan, one of the greatest of all time. And for me, greatest manager of all time. We got a Ring of Honor question here. Who's this from? This is from Jimmy James. Thank you for the 5 spot. Jimmy says, Tuna Meltzer, Dave Meltzer, says Ring of Honor is very close to landing a TV deal. My thoughts. Honestly, if Ring of Honor gets a TV deal, it is going to be a shit time slot. Might be 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Might be 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. Listen, I have nothing against the wrestlers who are featured primarily in Ring of Honor right now. But the Ring of Honor that you are watching is an absolute mess. Just because you have champions that have reigns for 500 days doesn't make it any less of a mess than what it is. Ring of Honor is just random nonsense. Even Carrie Silken and others who built Ring of Honor to be as good as it possibly can be say this is a shell of what Ring of Honor used to be. And here's the problem. You remember when Jericho won the ROH championship a couple of weeks ago? That night I did the wrestling news update and I said they put the belt on him for the second time because they're negotiating a TV deal. What a lot of people may have forgotten is that when Jericho lost the Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship the last time around, that was the same week that we learned that ROH was not getting a TV deal. They put the belt on Jericho solely because if they land a TV deal, World Heavyweight Champion Chris Jericho. That's why they did it. They don't want, tooth-missing Mark Briscoe to be the lead guy, with all due respect. They wanted a recognizable Hall of Fame name in Chris Jericho. So when this TV deal, if it's launched, if AEW Dynamite, which is supposed to be their flagship biggest show with the biggest names on it, your Mercedes Monets and everybody else's, if that can't do 700,000 viewers, what do you think Ring of Honor is going to do? 100,000 viewers? And honestly, I'm not saying that to be funny. I personally think TNA Impact has kicked the living shit out of AEW Rampage the last year. And yes, Access TV kind of sucks, but the point is, it was only a couple of years ago, right around the time when Tessa Blanchard was their world champion, and they were averaging 200K in the viewers. Now they can't even get 80,000. And some of it's because of their streaming platform now, so that's why nobody covers the ratings. But, what kind of numbers do people think Ring of Honor is going to get? I mean, could you imagine every week we're going to look forward to all these nimrods on social media with these, with too much free time on their hands, making these videos with these graphics and these giant fonts. No 100,000, 88,000. Like they gotta, and it's gonna be you cannot by name get a TV deal and suddenly everybody's like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Tony Khan has done so much damage to Ring of Honor the last couple of years. Putting a TV deal on it doesn't fix anything. You're basically going to offer on TV, hey, everybody, now you could see on free TV how fucked up we made Ring of Honor. And they have great talents there. But Ring of Honor, what kind of ratings? Somebody asked Dave Meltzer. Dave, what kind of ratings you think Ring of Honor could get on TBS or TNT? I guarantee he won't give you a number. He won't even give you an approximation. He'll dodge it. And honestly, I don't blame him. I don't think anybody wants to go on record and say something like that. Ring of Honor getting a TV deal? You know what that tells you? And you got to think about this. Right now, Ring of Honor, to watch it, you got to pay for it. Think about that. Right now, to watch Ring of Honor, you got to pay for it. If you're going to take away that revenue, put it on free TV instead, that means you would say, common sense, you're going to make more money on regular TV than the streaming. If you're only getting 80,000 viewers, 100,000 tops, and a shit time slot, how are you going to make more money on regular television than right now where every customer watching is a paid customer? So why would Warner Media want to do that unless they're getting a nice cut of the pay-per-view revenue? And that's what I kind of think it's going to be. So, all right. Much love. Thank you, Jimmy James, for that. Scott Woodward, how you doing, my brother? Hope everything is well with you. Thank you for the super shout out. He votes for pizza and ice cream. Absolutely. See, I got it. Pizza and ice cream all the way. I vote for the pizza guy, Luigi the pizza man. Yeah, pizza and ice cream all the way. In fact, I think I'm going to have some pizza and ice cream Tuesday. Well, for our Patreon family, just a warning, everyone. And then I promise you, after November 5th, we don't have to talk about it for the foreseeable future. Tuesday night, I'm doing my Patreon show at 10 p.m. instead of 8:30. And we are, in real time, going to follow the election. We're going to talk wrestling, but we're also going to talk about the results as they come in. So, it's going to be interesting to see our real-time reaction. Everybody who joins me live will be part of the conversation, and we'll see what happens. Tuesday night, it's going to be an interesting night. Definitely interesting night. But I think I'm going to have some pizza and ice cream ready for Tuesday. So, yeah, Luigi Primo. We could vote for him. I'm sure we could vote for him. Bob the Builder. Thank you for the 5-spot, Bob. What was my reaction when Michael Jackson died? This new generation has no idea how huge he was. What was my favorite songs from MJ? And your mom says hi. Tell your mom I said hello as well. Much love. Growing up for me, and I'm an older guy now, growing up, my two favorite artists, my original first favorite artist was Michael Jackson. I started to become a fan of Michael Jackson when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And the funny thing is, I was never a fan of the Jackson 5. When I was a really, really young kid and my mom would listen to like radio and we would hear Jackson 5, I would get a headache. I couldn't stand it. You know why? Because it wasn't just the Jackson 5. For some reason, like I noticed families, like to have a lot of kids. And there would be like other families with like 4 or 5 people singing, like the Osmonds and the others. And I'm like, what are all these little kid groups? Leave me alone with these kid groups. But Michael Jackson, I started becoming a fan in 1979. And his Off the Wall album, I absolutely loved it. In fact, for a very, very long time, and I should still have it saved somewhere. In the early 80s, I bought these special 45 records that I know still pop up on eBay of the Off the Wall album. And every 45 had like a different color, but the records were all red. They were red records. But I became a fan of Michael Jackson at that time. My first concert I ever went to in my lifetime was the Jacksons in 84. My father took me, my brother, a bunch of us went. The Victory Tour. That was the first time I ever saw anybody live. But then Prince came into my life. When Prince Controversy came out in 1982, started getting on my radar a little bit. But when Purple Rain came out, that was it. I was like, bye-bye, Mike. And it was Prince all the way afterwards. For Michael Jackson, I mean, everything on Off the Wall was awesome. I mean, I started falling out of favor with Michael Jackson after the Bad album. I don't know, it just started to feel different with his music. I will tell you that I truthfully, in my heart, do not believe that Michael Jackson did anything with children, inappropriately. Michael Jackson was always a child. In his mind, he was a kid. And I think the reason why he loved playing with kids, almost the same mentality with pets, but with kids, he didn't have to worry about somebody trying to screw him over. He didn't have to worry about somebody hurting him. The innocence of kids that every day is just, let's play games, eat ice cream, watch cartoons all day long, and that's my life. I think that's what made him feel the best. Plus his father, Joe, being very abusive growing up, I think he didn't have the father figure in his life that he truly wanted to have. What's interesting, when you look at a lot of these tragedies of people who passed away young, from Prince to others, what do they all have in common? They had shit dads. It happens a lot more than you realize. A lot of famous people who had tragic endings, had really, really tumultuous family life, very young. I don't think Michael Jackson ever did anything inappropriately. And it's a shame of the pain that he went through. I remember the Pepsi commercial. I remember, and it's weird. It's one of those things that you remember. I was home late at night. I think it might have been 10 o'clock, World News Tonight News on Channel 7, ABC TV. And they said that there was an accident during the filming of a Pepsi commercial with Michael Jackson, and his face got burned. And, supposedly ever since then, he got addicted to painkillers because of the nerve pain that he experienced. Trust me, I know about addiction to painkillers. We don't need to go there tonight. But, just a real shame. When he passed away, I had chills. Next to Elvis Presley, probably the greatest entertainer that ever lived. I know in this generation, it's Taylor Swift and others, but yeah, he was a very big part of my younger life out there. So, also, Bob asked what happened to Billy Starks, Athena, Wardlow, Ray Phoenix. Well, Wardlow, I believe, was out injured again, but I hear he might be okay now. Ray Phoenix, he's AEW added time to his contract, and they were trying to work out a deal. Ray Phoenix and AEW are trying to work out a deal where he can leave a little bit earlier. Athena is still kicking ass in Ring of Honor, and so is Billy Starks. So if you're asking me about Ricky Starks, I think Ricky Starks will be the next big name to exit AEW before anybody else. And, I think it's no secret that he's pretty much sitting on the sidelines, frustrated, but he's getting paid. So although we miss Ricky Starks in a wrestling ring, he's getting paid a pretty penny right now. So, sooner or later, he'll be back on TV. As long as Ricky Starks doesn't do anything stupid outside of wrestling where he could get himself hurt or in trouble, I think Ricky Starks will be back soon. So, all right. Ronnie C., he knows I don't like either candidate for president, but he wants to know if I think the election is rigged. And thank you for the 10 spot, Ronnie. Do I think the election is rigged? Yeah, I do. But not in the way that people say it is. How the election is rigged is when not necessarily people running for office, but when you have others out there manipulating news and manipulating facts, that's how you rig an election. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a very quick example. Day or two ago, I didn't watch it, but I heard on the news. A day or two ago, Trump was talking about somebody. Who was he talking about? Who is the woman that Trump was talking about? And she was talking about something about getting rid of guns or something with the war. And he said something like, let her, have 9 guns pointed to her head, in war or something, see how you would react to it. I didn't pay attention to it. I don't watch political stuff anymore. Liz Cheney, thank you very much, Oosh. And what did all the news media say? Trump, wants, Liz Cheney to like guns to be. You got to see the headlines that came out, and it was nothing of the sort. If you want to use a wrestling example, how many of you saw in the last couple of days that some guy was scammed out of $1 million from someone pretending to be Alexa Bliss? How many of you heard that story? You want to know the truth of that story? The truth of that story is that multiple scammers scammed a guy out of about $900,000 while he was alive. He died last year. And part of the scam one of the scammers claimed to be Alexa Bliss, and Vince McMahon was abusing her, and she needed money so she can leave WWE and get out on her own. But if you follow the bullshit wrestling news media, they're making it seem like this guy was scammed out of $1 million from somebody pretending to be Alexa Bliss. It was a small part of a whole bunch of scams this guy fell for. This guy fell for IRS scams. He fell for we have your nephew at hostage scams. He fell for people who claimed to be, in desperate need of money scam. This guy got scammed, and over again, he was just sending money and sending money and sending money. And then one of them, decided they were going to be Alexa Bliss because they found out he was a wrestling fan through his social media. But people make you think that somebody pretending to be Alexa Bliss stole $1 million, which is bullshit. It's exaggerated. But in the political world, I read a quote the other day that 94% of the news coverage about Kamala Harris has been positive, and 93% of the news coverage about Donald Trump has been negative. And to me, that's how you rig elections as well. The New York Times is putting out front page article tomorrow, an op-ed saying why everybody needs to end this Trump reign. Don't vote him in. And New York Times has every right to their opinion, but they're putting it smack right in their news for the world to see because they're trying to influence an election. I'm a little bit too young for the Walter Cronkites of the world. He was still alive doing news when I was extremely young. But back in the day, if you were a news journalist, you reported the news unbiased. If you want to have an opinion, that is absolutely fine, as long as you advertise it, you're an opiner. So that's what Kevin and I do. We do report news. We do sometimes break news. Sometimes we get some exclusives and we share it with all of you out there. But first and foremost, if you look at my Twitter account, @DonTonyD, the first word in my profile is opiner. We express our opinions. That's what we do. That is our first and foremost thing. But when it comes to the news media, twisting things and manipulating it and exaggerating this and saying that, no matter whose side you're on, whether it's Fox News against Kamala Harris or CNN against Trump, that's how you rig elections. When you put out wrong, exaggerated, fake information and people fall for it, they buy it, they believe it. You hear things about, like the idea that, the Affordable Care Act is going to be repealed if Trump is put in power. And I'm not endorsing Trump. I didn't vote for either one. But my point is, think back to 8 years ago. How come it wasn't repealed then? Like when they're saying, we're going to take away this, we're going to take away that. If it didn't happen before, why do you think it's going to happen now? So it's just, to me, rigging an election is making people believe something that is not true. I believe the ballots are real. If you remember 4 years ago, that controversy about the military and, some insults that apparently were thrown towards the military, that was put out there. And then, by the way, early voting, make sure you cast your vote. And then a week or two later, things are dispelled as being bullshit. That's how you rig elections. So the ballot count is real. I believe whatever the votes that come in, sure, there's going to be some illegals. Absolutely, there's going to be illegals. Why wouldn't they vote? But I don't think that anybody's stuffing ballots, like somebody's writing 50 ballots by themselves. I think at the end of the day, the ballot count is legit. But, when you are constantly fed bullshit and you believe it, there's some very gullible people out there. There's millions of gullible people out there, and you keep feeding them a steady dose of bullshit, and they believe everything, and then they vote a certain way because they believe what you're telling them is true. Yeah, that's how you rig elections, in my opinion. All right. Bob asked, do people really still watch The View? I have no idea. I don't follow them. I never watched it. I don't like it. the little clips that I've seen over the years, it is very, very, one-sided, but, people enjoy tuning in. So, you got to ask the people that fit that demographic. I'm not one of them. You have to ask people out there that watch the show and ask them, why do you watch the show? I mean, I'm sure not everything they talk about is politics, but I really don't know. And honestly, I don't want to know. I really don't want to know, but thank you for that. All right. Douche, D without douche. Op-ed and endorsements are different from the news reporting at papers and news channels. I get it. Op-eds, absolutely, you're right. But when a big mainstream newspaper, listen, even newspapers that endorsed Trump or endorsed Kamala Harris, you're supposed to be reporting the news. Report the news fair, straight down the middle, and let people decide how they want to vote. The problem is, especially with the dying newsprint media, and you see, you notice if you take a certain path, you'll get more subscribers that way. I mean, you see even, listen, you look at all the AEW bitterness these days. That's not something that happened overnight. The only reason why it sounds like it happened overnight is because a lot of the biggest podcasters out there are now very vocal about criticizing AEW. But there's people out there that for years have figured out that, let me criticize this and let me rip this, and I can make more money than being positive. And how you could figure out who those people are is the ones that say, I don't watch the show. I didn't watch Dynamite. I didn't watch Raw. I didn't see the show. And then you're like, well, why are you covering it? Or you're like, how could you turn around and say this, and this when you don't even follow it? I think yesterday we were talking about, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I'll say it. Meltzer was wrong a couple of weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, he said that Raquel and Rhea was set for Crown Jewel, which wasn't true. They were supposed to be on the Raw after Crown Jewel, but not on Crown Jewel. They wanted a championship match. They were advertising Bianca Belair the entire time. They did not advertise Rhea Ripley at all for Crown Jewel, even before the injury. So he put that in the newsletter, and like a lot of other things, he got things wrong again. And then after Crown Jewel, 5 minutes after Crown Jewel, that match was scrapped for Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus Chelsea Green and Piper Niven versus Damage Control versus Metaphor. That match took place because Rhea and Raquel got canceled. And I had to give everybody a little bit of a lesson yesterday, a little refresher, that for 4 weeks, WWE's been planting the seeds of that four-way tag match. Jakara Jackson and Last Legend didn't show up on Raw sitting at ringside showing off their hot bodies for 3 weeks, 2 weeks before Rhea got injured, simply because they were just showing up to hang out. You didn't have Chelsea Green and Piper Niven show up on 2 NXT episodes, one a week before Rhea Ripley got hurt, and just start fucking with Damage Control and fucking with Metaphor for no reason whatsoever. You didn't have Last Legend and Jakara Jackson face Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill on an episode of SmackDown 2 weeks ago, just for the hell of it. You didn't have Damage Control take on Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill 3 weeks ago for the tag titles on Raw, just for the hell of it. The problem is, you don't watch Raw. You don't watch NXT. You don't watch SmackDown. So all these things have been happening for a whole month to set up this four-way tag match. And to him, it was replaced because Rhea got a boo-boo. So unfortunately, and there's a lot of people out there that believe the shit. So see, if I'm going to ever question something, I'll always question it with research. I don't just say, I call bullshit. I explain why I call bullshit. And you see everything that happened. So, Bob the Builder, thank you very much. Have I ever met CM Punk or Tony Khan before? I have met CM Punk. I have never met Tony Khan before. The second annual Chris Candido Memorial Show. That was the night where I put, well, fans believed I put the X-Lax in the cannolis, and I had the incident in the ring where people were pelting me with garbage, and that guy was going to kick my ass because he thought that I spiked his kid's cannolis with X-Lax. CM Punk wrestled on that card. I think he wrestled, no, Corporal Robinson took on Balls Mahoney. I don't remember who CM Punk wrestled, but he was on that card. And the one thing that's amazing that I still think about from that time, no, wait, he might have fought Axel Rotten. I don't remember. I have a cool picture. Actually, Corporal Robinson and Balls Mahoney posed for me in the back, bleeding like crazy. I have the photo still on my computer. Posed for me. It was actually an awesome photo. I just never put it online. But that card, what I always remember from it was Frank Goodman got CM Punk to appear on the show. And just like many, did not take a paycheck that time. Very, very cool of Punk to do. So CM Punk was advertised for, I would say, a good month and a half before the event took place. And they had, which were called at the time Juggalettes. Remember the Juggalettes for Juggalo Championship? They would have all these girls that were considered Juggalettes. And I remember when CM Punk came to New York, I think he, at the time, either was still doing a little bit with Ian Rotten's group or may have just had the falling out or was just about to have the falling out. I think some of you know the story. But I remember a whole bunch of like really, really insanely attractive women sitting in the groups. And I don't know who I was talking to at the time. We were like, I don't remember Long Island, like having all these hot girls showing up at wrestling events. I mean, it was always, attractive girls that would show up. But this looked different. And they were like, oh, no, those are Juggalettes. They came from the Midwest or the South or something. And there is video. In fact, didn't I play on a sit-down episode like 2 years ago on this show? Didn't I play the unedited CM Punk match? That title match wrestling put online. I own part of the rights to that match. I have the unedited, uncensored match. And they edited it because CM Punk called somebody the H word at ringside. It rhymes with Hideo Nomo. He was saying he was ragging on the fans at ringside. And it's funny, if you go on YouTube and you look at the version that title match put online, all that shit's edited out. And I'm like, nah, we show everything in its entirety. So I did the ratings prediction earlier, Bob. I think NXT is going to do about 680 to 710, around that range. And I see AEW doing about 590, 580, 590. It's going to be about 1.2, 1.3 million viewers of fans watching that night, but I think NXT will win. But NXT is not going to pop the number. 3 weeks ago, I said maybe NXT could get close to 9. Then I started really thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm saying that originally because I like some of the ECW legends that are showing up, obviously. Then I really thought about it. And please, no offense to those people, because I absolutely love some of them. I have nothing but warm feelings towards. But I said in 2024, how many NXT fans are truly going to want to tune in because Dawn Marie's managing a referee in a match? I mean, how many people are going to tune in because Little Guido makes an appearance? How many people are going to tune in because Francine is there? There's going to be other surprises. I already know a few. And, I mean, Kevin and I were told, shh, don't say anything because they want to surprise some people. I will say, I've been asking the same people, is Paul Heyman going to be there? Is Paul Heyman going to be there? Paul Heyman going to be there? And the idea is they want to say Paul Heyman for Survivor Series to be that final glue to get the bloodline back together. But most people believe that you're not going to do an ECW reunion in 2024 at the former ECW arena on NXT and not have Paul Heyman there. So most people believe Paul Heyman will be there on Wednesday. But even if he is, like, I don't think you're going to get a couple 100,000 people tune in simply because Paul Heyman's going to be there. 316 MMA is asking, what do I think about the booking issue with Dirty Dom last Monday, where he won the number one contenders match and he was in a fatal four-way on the Raw match. Now, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but you should check out my daily news update that I did for today. I recorded late last night. And interesting thing is, without giving away spoilers, if every single one of you downloads last night's daily news update for November 3rd, I was covering Raw. And one of the things that I said was, why do they have Dirty Dom in this match since he just won a number one, he won a championship opportunity. He already has his title shot. He doesn't need to be in this match. And I said that Seth Rollins is going to get screwed from Bronson Reed. Sheamus has no business getting a world championship match right now, even though a match with Gunther would be pretty cool. You do it on a house show. You don't do it on a premium live event. I said they're doing this to set up Damian Priest. Down the line, it's going to be Damian Priest versus Dominic versus Gunther. It's going to be a three-way. And if you listen to that daily news update, everything that we said, even down to Rey Mysterio getting into it with Chad Gable, everything that we had a feeling was going to happen, happened. So, I don't know why Dom was in this match. It's telling, because then you realize, wait, these are the only number one contenders we could come up with here? Like, if anything, I mean, I know why he wasn't in it, but why wouldn't Bronson Reed be in the match? Right? I mean, don't we remember that Bronson Reed wanted a title match against Gunther a while back? But they wanted Bronson Reed to screw Seth Rollins out of his opportunity. Seth got the win on Saturday, but, Bronson Reed, you know the deal. So. Oh, Dominic Mysterio can absolutely hang in a triple threat. We're tired of seeing Damian Priest and Dominic going at it. Just picture Dom getting it, not only from Damian Priest now, but getting some of those chops from Gunther. Dominic is going to get the living shit kicked out of him. In fact, I will make a prediction that after that three-way match is over, whenever it happens, they're going to have pictures in the back of Dom showing insanely raw skin on his upper body. I don't know how much they're going to show because we don't normally see Dominic Mysterio topless, if you've noticed. But Dominic is going to get the shit knocked out of him that night. So I'm telling you, it's funny. I have so many autographed things of Dominic Mysterio in my house that I was going to give away. And then for some reason, we never did. But for some reason, right? Oh, look at this. Hang on. I have like various collectible stuff like lingering. I just found something pretty interesting. This one's cool. This is Paige's rookie card autograph signed. This I still haven't given away yet. Nia Jax, her original autograph kissed and everything. I have the original AJ Lee, her first autograph card, which is worth a lot of money. And for some weird reason, I got this Mr. McMahon $1 thing in front of me. So, oh, and by the way, somebody gifted me this a while back, and I don't know why. Wait, let's. That's the real Alexa Bliss writer, by the way, not the one that scammed someone. But why would somebody send me an Evil Uno figure? Why would somebody send me an AEW Evil Uno figure? I was going through my shit a couple of days ago, and I pulled this out of a box, and I'm like, I know I wouldn't even bought this on a drunk tirade. Like on a drunk tirade, I might like buy too many things on Amazon, but probably like ship for my dogs or for my house. I'm like, evil. I'm getting gas even thinking about it. I don't want to fart live on his air. Evil Uno. Like, I don't have nothing against the guy, but I'm watching the Blackpool Combat Club or whatever they're calling themselves now, and they're beating up the Dark Order and they're beating up random people. And I'm like, yeah, good. Kill them. Like, there ain't nobody in that group that I feel sorry. They destroy Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy is sad about it. Good. Good. Fucking put him out of his misery. And I say that, storyline wise. When you're going to cause chaos, you're supposed to cause chaos against people that maybe we have like some emotional support for. Like almost everybody they beat up, I'm like, good. Get them off my fucking TV. All right. I knew this was coming. Oh, I knew this was coming. Capita the Great, thank you for the 10 spot. My thoughts on the raid and euthanization of Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon. That breaks my heart for a couple of reasons. My dog Peanut, that I still miss very, very dearly. Every time you see the outro from this show, as far as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. If you look closely, I'm petting my dog Peanut. He will always be a tribute, somewhere. What's the name of my African gray parrot? Fred. So I have Peanut and I got Fred. So I hear about this story and I'm like, oh my God, Peanut and Fred. I'm like, couldn't come up with two different names. Here's my honest take on it. I'm going to say this from an animal standpoint and from a political standpoint. For those that don't know the story, there's a guy in New York. He's from New York. How could I forget? And he had a raccoon and a squirrel as pets. Now, with all due respect about raccoons, raccoon having it as a pet to me is a big no-no. I don't care how lovable it is. That's not a pet you should have. Doesn't mean it should have been euthanized. You want to test the pets for rabies? How's about testing the owners if they had rabies? As far as I know, those pets didn't bite anybody. So for those that don't know the story, somehow, I guess, neighbors were complaining to, ASPCA or whoever, the police got involved, that their neighbor had a raccoon and a squirrel as a pet. So they raided the house. They brought in the couple into custody, and they took the squirrel and the raccoon and they put them to sleep. And the official statement is that they put them to sleep so they could test them for rabies. And, as far as I know, they didn't bite anybody. So why didn't they just test the couple if they had any signs of rabies? And you take the raccoon and you put them in wildlife. The videos of the squirrel are heartbreaking. That squirrel was no threat to anybody. I read somebody who claimed to be a homeowner that lived next door or two doors down said that I suffered $5,000 in damages to my lines because the squirrel was biting the lines. Well, I number one, he didn't have any video proof of it. Number two, that's why you have homeowners insurance. I think it's disgusting that the squirrel especially was put to sleep. I find it appalling that PETA, P-E-T-A, PETA, has not said a damn thing about it, which is, I know why they didn't, because Trump and the Republican side of things have turned this into a political discussion. And it's because New York is run by Democrats and this and that, and I'm saying this to be straight neutral here. We don't know whoever put these animals to sleep. We don't know if they're Republican or Democrat. We don't know who exactly, did it. So I don't think it should be a political tool here. But the fact that PETA kept silent about it because most of them are against Trump, and Trump uses as a political, story, turned it political, is disgusting across the board. It's a shame that it happened. That squirrel looked harmless. At worst, put the squirrel on some type of farm or something. There's squirrels running around all day long. You're going to put a squirrel to sleep because you want to test it for rabies, but I could walk to my house and there's squirrels. How many of you remember the videos I would play of the squirrels all standing outside my windows, popping up on my windows? It's a terrible story. It is horrible. And, the squirrel especially, that was just heartbreaking because you could see that squirrel had a legitimate connection with its owner. This was not just a wild animal in the house. Just absolutely terrible, man. Absolutely terrible. It's a terrible story. And it really, really, if it doesn't hit you even a little bit, I don't know what to say, but that's just an awful story. It's really, really sad. OTS Tribal Queen says there's a guy on YouTube who feeds dozens of raccoons on his porch. Well, look, if you have raccoons, first of all, we don't know exactly where he lives. He might live in the country. If raccoons are notoriously around there and he just throws them food, listen, when I used to go camping in the Adirondacks especially, and sometimes Bear Mountain, we would always close the front because we didn't want the smell of our food to attract raccoons. Because raccoons, can be very vicious. They're wild animals. But what we would do after is, when we were getting ready to leave and we had food to discard, we would all put it aside and, put it for the raccoons to come have a field day. If somebody does that and it's a country environment, I don't know if there's any issues with it, but just terrible. This is absolutely terrible. Dean Parks with Johnny says he heard that it was a woman from Longview, Texas that ratted them out. Whoever ratted them out, it's still, there was no reason to put, especially the squirrel, to sleep. I mean, again, the raccoon, totally stupid to keep a raccoon as a pet. I think that was a big mistake. But again, no reason to euthanize it. If the raccoon would have bit people, then I could see where that could be an issue and maybe, they had to do it, but there was no reports of anything of the sort. So why put them to sleep? It was just a terrible story. PETA especially pissed me the fuck off because you look at even their website, their social media, their Twitter account, and it's about every animal having a purpose, and to see them completely silent about this story tells a lot. And then when you look a little deeper and you see what political side they lean on and you see, should Trump have turned this into a political story? No, I don't think so. I don't think it should have been turned political, but still, terrible story. Tristan wants to know, what was my original thoughts of the Diamond Dallas Page Undertaker storyline? I liked it. The funny thing about DDP being revealed as a stalker, these are the early days of Kev and I doing shows. In fact, I was doing a hotline still at the time, and Kev might have just been a periodic guest once in a while. There was one time where a voice was scrambled. And keep in mind, guys, this is the early 2000s. Technology is much different back then, even though it's only 20 some odd years ago. And during one of the videos, a voice was scrambled. And everybody was like, who's the voice? Who's the voice? Who's the voice? And we used a audio program. I think it might have been Goldwave. We used a program called Goldwave, and we were changing the pitch and the sound of the voice to try to see whose voice it was. And if I remember correctly, it was Vince McMahon's voice. I liked DDP as a stalker. It was unexpected, and him stalking Sarah was kind of bizarre, especially at the time. I think we still thought that he was with Kimberly. So it was like, what do you need Sarah for? But, obviously it was mind games for The Undertaker. I liked it. Football Talk, 97. What was my thoughts on Brian Pillman's segment on Raw when he had the gun? That was crazy. That was absolutely insane when he whipped out the gun. What was that, 1997, I think it was? Was it 97? No, it had to be 97. I don't think it was 96. It could have been 96 because he had just left ECW. Because when Steve Austin was outside Pillman's house, if you look closely, some of the people that he beat up Austin outside, one of them was wearing an ECW shirt. Might have even been wearing a Pitbull's shirt. I think some people have said that they did not know that Pillman had a gun that night. I don't believe it. The way everything was positioned with the cameras, I think they damn well knew that he had a gun that night. It was going to point it. Obviously, it wasn't loaded, but they did not realize the amount of trouble or heat they would get as a result. You got to keep in mind, this is a time when the Parent-Teacher Council are still going after wrestling. Phil Mushnick is still wild as fuck against wrestling. So WWE had a lot of enemies at the time. So Brian Pillman with a gun got some newspaper press as a result. But that was wild. That was absolutely wild. Look, he's one of my favorites of all time. Absolutely one of my favorites of all. I got to meet him 2 times when he was doing the ECW stuff. I remember one time especially was either a week or two, about 2 weeks before. I don't know if it was before or after they filmed a bunch of segments with him in a restaurant, in a limo, something else. But we happened to be in Philly at ECW Arena for an event. And you couldn't tell if he was in character or if he just flipped his lid. Like you know what it reminds me of, guys? This is what it reminds me of. I truly believe when Brian Pillman was in the locker room, when he was around the wrestlers, he was normal like everybody else. I think Pillman, if there was even one fan visible, it reminds me of Jim Carrey when Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman. If you've ever watched the documentary about that movie, like some actors, to get into a role, they almost try to convince themselves that they are that person. And Jim Carrey would go around acting as if he really was Andy Kaufman. And some people, thought it was very bizarre and strange. But there are actors over decades that have done that for various characters. I think Pillman, as long as there was a fan around, he was not going to reveal his cards. Like, he was just loose cannon all the way. It felt a little bit odd. I mean, when I met him the first time, there was a decent number of fans around. So it wasn't just like a very intimate environment where maybe he could drop his guard a little bit. But the way he was acting, like, he was cool, but people were like, something up with him. Like, it just felt like maybe something legitimately, like maybe the lights were on and, somebody might have not been home at the time. Yeah, Gruss says Heath Ledger tried to convince himself he was the Joker when he was doing the role. I think that's awesome, man. I think it's awesome. As stupid as it sounds, when I did the Don Tony stuff, doing the managing, I mean, me, it was a reflection of real life, just on steroids, but like I just put myself in that gangster wannabe mafioso type mentality. And I would think about certain customers that I knew and certain people from the neighborhood. And I tried to be exactly like them, even before the shows and after the shows. Like you would just get into that mindset and it would make things a little bit easier. If you got into that mindset and you really thought, you were playing that part and really being that person, obviously not on that level, but, you kind of start believing that your reactions would be exactly what the person's reactions would be. Vincent, I talked about the releases on the news update this morning. Kevin and I are going to be talking about them tomorrow. All I'll say right now is Tegan Knox, Kevin and I have talked about before. She's been on thin ice for a while. Baron Corbin has got more lives than a cat. He should be very, very grateful he lasted this long. And Indy Hartwell, although very surprising that she was let go, all you got to do is tune into Wednesdays and be like, yeah, okay. I could see why some women are being let go. There's only so many spots on the main roster. And if you're going to promote Roxanne Perez soon, if you're going to promote others soon, that means some others are going to have to go. So sometimes you're going to have to cut ties with someone, especially if they're near the latter part of their contract. And like, hey, we got to make room for others. There's going to be other releases, guys. There's absolutely going to be other releases. So when you see people out there like, oh, Bobby Lashley stood out a lot in the tank. Well, guess what? If they made room to bring up somebody else as a result, yeah, well, you know what? Time to step aside. You've gotten your time. We got to start investing in the future. We cannot give you that TV time anymore. There's a lot of people out there. The word is called unemployed. There's a lot of talented people out there in the entertainment world that don't have a TV gig or a movie gig and might be very qualified for certain roles, but hey, there's only so many roles to go around. So Benjamin's asking, did Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez go too far when they said, thank God, under Indy Hartwell's Twitter post regarding a reacted or release? No. Benjamin, Indy Hartwell knew about her release beforehand. She was not informed because of Fightful. She joked online, but they contacted her. She knew. Again, this is like the fifth time I'm saying this. This is why you guys got to tune into the daily news updates. We put so much shit on those updates. You have no idea. Talked about it this morning. Mandy Rose got married yesterday. She married Tino Sabatelli. Roxanne Perez and Indy Hartwell were at that wedding. They're sitting next to each other, posing for pictures. They were all together, hanging out. They're very good friends. They're just playing up to their heel characters and being ultimate douchebags on social media. That's why they said what they said. Your reaction and others to what they said is exactly what they were going for. They were going for that reaction. Chelsea Green, nothing but love online for Indy Hartwell. Roxanne Perez, good. Thank God. Get out of here. We don't need you. Good. Good riddance. They don't mean that. I don't want to exaggerate or report fake news, but someone who I'm friends with that talked to a few people who are at the wedding said that there were a lot of tears shed yesterday. And I'm sure, and I brought this up this morning on the Daily News Update, I'm sure Indy Hartwell's release was probably brought up 1,000 times yesterday. Every person she saw at the wedding, oh my God, how you doing? Oh, Indy, I'm so hot. Sorry, what happened? She probably had to deal with that loads of times yesterday. So, yeah. Benjamin says releases aren't used for heat. That's why you do it. That's why Roxanne Perez did what she did on social media. Because when you don't believe that it should have happened That's wrestling in its finest. Kevin Owens, cutting promos, unhappy with WWE. But meanwhile, he's there, staying there. That goes against, the story or normal procedure. What WWE's trying to do is blur the lines sometimes. You look at Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. Kind of reminded me of when the Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan were on the highway together. They were interviewed by the media. Iron Sheik, what are you doing, Hacksaw Jim Duggan? He's one of your biggest rivals. Oh, my car broke down. He was the only person that would give me the ride, but he is a jerk. I cannot stand him. He set me up. Fuck you. Ha, puh. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre are shown standing near each other ringside. Some asshole, rumored to be Odyssey Jones, snaps a photo. And you didn't hear that from me. Snaps a photo, in the rafters of everybody practicing for Raw, which happens every single week. And then Drew McIntyre is asked on an interview, like, what do you have to say about that photo that came out that you and CM Punk? He's like, I work with people. That doesn't mean I have to like them. We work together. What are you supposed to say? So, yeah, Roxanne Perez saying that when you least expect it is creativity at its finest. I'm sure she asked Indy Hartwell before she did it. Look, is it right if I take a little shot at you just, for heat? So Indy Hartwell was like, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. How long are we at? We're at 90 minutes, -5 because of the blunder earlier. I'm going to have to trim out that first 5 minutes. I don't know what the fuck happened earlier. I'm sincerely sorry for everyone who joined me live at the beginning of the show. It was so strange because I got my monitor is this big. I'm not kidding. I got to show you all a picture one day if you haven't seen it, but it's literally the size of like 2.5 monitors together. But I have my program here where I see all your questions and I see the stats and, the stream health and all that. Then I see over here when super chats come in and I have some notes written down. Then here is the program that runs everything. And I see monitors and, it also shows me like the connection and everything. And it shows my volume levels as well. So I can monitor in case there's an issue. And literally, as the show started and it started playing that 2008 audio of, President Don Tony, I look at the audio bar and it went, oof, and it was complete silence. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And then I look at the comment section and people are like, what's up? And then I hit reload and the whole thing froze. And I'm like, oh, what the And I didn't touch any browsers or nothing. So I honestly, in the years of me doing video, it never happened before, ever on the show. So luckily we got it fixed within 5 minutes. So yeah, no. We're not going to spend too much time tonight because number one, we got the show tomorrow. Then we got Patreon on Tuesday. Then we got the Daily News Update Wednesday. Then we got the Daily News Update Thursday. So there's something every day we're going to get into. So plus, it's great to be able to finish these shows at a reasonable hour. So, but we'll go another, I would say like 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll get out of here. So Greg is asking, do I think the election will have any effect on the direction of the wrestling business as a whole? Do I think presidencies and wrestling eras correlate at all? Listen, even though I don't like either candidate, it's bizarre, although kind of entertaining, to see Trump at rallies coming out to the Undertaker's music. Not just the death march, but the actual Undertaker music. It's like like the remake, it's his fucking theme. And I'm like, that doesn't fit. Because he comes out to Undertaker and then he finishes with YMCA by the Village People. It's just strange. Listen, I don't think the election will change anything. A lot of you will not accept this, but more than half of who you watch on television are voting for Trump. Just a lot of people choose to keep it quiet and silent. How will some people react when they find out that certain people voted for Trump? Again, if you're that angry and if you're going to call people Nazis for voting, you better call your favorites in wrestling the very same thing. Because if you don't, then, you are part of the problem, with all due respect. See, if I absolutely despise something, hate it, have a bitter hatred for it, I'm not going to let my guard down at all and kind of lighten up on it simply because someone that I like kind of feels a little bit different about it. So if you truly have that bitter hatred towards certain people, if they vote a certain way, you better react the same damn way or be prepared to when your favorites are revealed to have voted that way. Just because they don't tell you doesn't lower or diminish the act that they did. It's kind of disgusting to see what I've seen the last couple of days. So I don't care who's a Trumper. I don't care who's voting for Kamala. Nothing is going to change. I just thank God, and I'm just going to say it, I just thank God we don't have the Andrew Yangs and the others this time around, trying to tease wrestling unions and all that stuff. That guy is such a hack. I mean, I know some people like him, and at one point I actually thought he was good. Then I saw that shit a couple of years ago when Zelina Vega got released from the WWE. I saw what she did and a few people from SAG-AFTRA, whatever that shit's called. And I'm like, you phonies, you fakes. Nothing is changing in wrestling. Oh, we had I'll never forget. Who's that girl from 90210 that heads the whole thing? And she said, I had a very productive conversation with Zelina Vega today. I think we could actually, I'm like, you fucking lying piece of shit. You did nothing. There ain't nothing changing. And look, how many years later, nothing is changing. Isn't it kind of interesting that they're uber silent, especially when you hear that Kevin Kelly and the Tate twins are suing AEW about the independent contract aspect to it? Even though it's not WWE, isn't it interesting that the people who wanted to push for wrestlers' unions in wrestling are completely silent about that lawsuit? So, I don't have any issue how you lean, but be honest about it. Be honest about it. I watched a video today. Can't remember the guy's name. Detective something. Oh man. Crap. I can't remember his name right now. Sergeant something. And he I'll remember next time, I'll let you know, but he was doing a political discussion. And he said that, what he has noticed is that there's a lot of people out there who are lying, who are saying that they're voting one way to kind of appease the media, appease the backlash on social media. And then in the ballot box, they're voting a completely different way. And it's like, if you're going to vote a certain way, at least have the balls to stand up and, defend your actions. All right. I hit him up. I swear on my parents, I will never do another show ever again. I swear on my dogs, my wife, my credibility. Did not vote for the president of the United States. I selected some Spanish woman's name with De Leon or De La Cruz or something. There was Trump, there was Kamala, and then there was two other choices. And I was like, whoever. I just marked it down. I wasn't happy with either one. Listen, if I truly was going to vote for one of the two, if I really wanted to, I would just say, yeah, I voted, but I don't want to tell you who I voted for. I just was not happy with either candidate. I think Trump is too. Listen, do I think some of his stuff is entertaining? Yeah, at times. Do I like when someone talks like one of us and has the nerve to tell some people, straight up stuff? Yeah. But I don't think he doesn't show enough empathy. And even though the Congress is really where all these laws are going to be passed and everything, I just don't feel, in this day and age where you got to bring the country together, I don't think he's the right choice for president. We got to bring this country together. You cannot divide it even further. Listen, I voted for Trump 8 years ago. And I'm telling you, it's scary that anybody wearing a red hat, you got to watch your back. I mean, my brother had a Trump bumper sticker and somebody keyed up his car. A lot of you know the story about my father having a Trump banner 8 years ago and somebody almost set the house on fire. They lit the banner on fire and it almost torched up the house. That's scary shit. It's not, and then you hear about the Jussie Smollett story and you hear others that anybody who's a MAGA is this, is that, this. That's scary shit. That is not fun. Especially when deep down inside, you're like, look, I just want this country to get better, lower the bills. I can't afford what's going on. I don't think this having millions of illegal immigrants coming in, I don't think it's good for this country. If we had tons of room and tons of money, then it would be like, hey, yeah, come on. Yeah, no problem. But when everybody else is paying for it, it's just, there's too many things wrong right now. I don't like either candidate. I don't think either one is going to fix the problems. I'm hoping 4 years from now, somebody, and I hope it's not an entertainer, I hope it's not Oprah or The Rock or anybody like that. Somebody's got to come up that gets along with both sides and run for office. Somebody's got to. There's just no way after 8 years, there's nobody. It just doesn't make sense, man. All right, let's start bringing this home. 316 MMA, do I think that Dirty Dom should be the one to beat Jay for the IC title? No, and the reason why I say that is because Bron Breakker is the IC champ right now. No, I don't. Listen, Dominic Mysterio, do I see the world championship put on him? Not anytime soon. Not for years. I think if Dom were to win the world heavyweight championship, it would kind of feel like a troll job more than anything else. But I think Dominic Mysterio, listen, there's no secret. I have shown a lot of support for Dom for a couple of years now. I have been on the bandwagon for Dom for a very long time. I think Dom is one of the top heels in that that company. The heat that he gives off and how he not only performs, but how he sells for everybody else. When he takes a beating, he fucking sells and makes it look like he is getting the shit knocked out of him. And he's having a great time doing it. And to think that he's not been in the business that long is excellent. I think Dominic Mysterio down the line will be IC champion. I don't think he should be the one to dethrone Bron Breakker. As of right now, there's nobody comes to mind that should dethrone Bron Breakker. I think he should keep that championship for a while. So, but Dom will hold gold, and Dom needs to hold singles gold. I don't want Dom to be a tag team champion. I know he already did it with his dad, but Dom needs singles gold, but not yet. Not yet. Listen, he was NXT North American champion not too long ago, and say what you want about Dom, but Dom got some of the biggest ratings that NXT was getting at that time. And there was 1 or 2 weeks where Dom main evented Raw. A lot of you may not remember this. There was at least 2 weeks where Dom main evented Raw, NXT, and SmackDown all in the same week. Do you remember anyone else doing that in recent memory? Jason says The Rock openly admitted he's running in 2028, most likely independent Green Party. Yeah, he said that before, but now he is board of directors, TKO Group Holdings, making tens of millions of dollars and is in a much different position. So even though he has said that before, if he focuses on business for the next couple of years, I do not see The Rock running in 2028. Do not see it happening at all. Douche wants to know, who does Goldberg put over in his retirement match? Again, talked about it this morning. You guys need to tune into the daily news updates. I don't know who he faces, but I gave 2 very good examples. Austin Theory, Grayson Waller. I think it's going to be somebody like that. And the reason why, and you know why I used Grayson Waller as an example, is because even if Grayson Waller gets his ass kicked and loses, Grayson Waller could, and I picture this, and I guarantee no one's thought about this. If Grayson Waller ends up being Goldberg's final match and Grayson gets his ass kicked and loses, Grayson Waller could still go around after that and tell the world, I retired Bill Goldberg. You know, I retired Bill Goldberg. You lost. You got your ass kicked. I still retired Bill Goldberg. He's out of wrestling. So I could see something like that. It's not going to be Gunther. I think it would be asinine if it's Gunther, unless Gunther just hands Goldberg his lunch. Do not think Gunther should step down. You know, Goldberg is not in his prime anymore. Goldberg cannot do what he used to do. If this was 5 to 7 years ago, I would say, all right, maybe. Because it was believable enough with Brock Lesnar. Gunther, I don't think you sacrifice Gunther. Win or lose, I don't think Gunther should be the right person. I don't think it should be the right person. So Sonic is saying, silly question, but if The Rock won as president, can he be an actor and president? No. I'm sure he can make cameo appearances on TV shows and late night shows, which presidents have done before. But no, you're not going to have both. You're in the presidency, you're in the presidency. So Jeff says, who's to say Goldberg is going to lose in his retirement? Sure, he could very well lose. But the idea of Gunther selling for Goldberg, yeah, if Goldberg wants to hit a spear unexpectedly, yeah, I could see that. But unless Gunther hands him his lunch, I don't want to see Gunther versus Goldberg. I don't like it. I think also, and this is what I said this morning too, I think that there is a good chance it happens in Saudi Arabia. I know everybody immediately thought, oh, WrestleMania. You know what? I could picture Saudi Arabia, and I could picture WWE telling the Crown Prince, hey, listen, what if Goldberg had his last match ever in Saudi Arabia? Tell me more. Look at this Crown Jewel Championships. They were trophies. That's all they were. I was watching social media on Saturday, and Kevin and I will be doing a recap of Crown Jewel tomorrow. But I was watching social media on Saturday, and they're like, wait, so the championships, they're not going to be like brought back to the States? Wait, so they're not actually going to defend them? What were people living under a rock? These were just trophies. in the shape of championships. Those 2 championship belts will go to that big WWE store that they have in Saudi Arabia, and that will be on display, or in the Crown Prince's office, one of the two. And Cody and Liv Morgan get rings that they get to put on their mantle, just like they would get a trophy. It's a trophy. That's all this was. It's a trophy. But it's interesting because if they're going to do this every year, that means the champion at the time is going to be a pretty legitimate guy. It's not going to be somebody that's transitional. Because who wants to see a transitional champion fighting for a ring in Saudi Arabia? So, all right, let's do 2 more questions. And Jet, let's make these good. Tristan, I talked about Vince McMahon starting the entertainment company last week. Talked about it in detail. So I think it was one of the news updates. You got to go check it out. It ain't going off the ground. In fact, I think I covered on 3 news updates last week. It ain't coming off the ground. There'll be too much social media backlash. Anybody that tries to do business with them, they will have a giant mass amount of negativity going their way. It's going to be interesting to see if any former WWE wrestlers get on board. It's going to be interesting when the rumors start saying that John Cena is going to be involved with it. There's a lot of stuff. So, Daryl, do I ever see Jose Canseco or Pete Rose in the Baseball Hall of Fame? Pete Rose will absolutely be put in. I'm shocked that it didn't happen yet, because in this era where, things become soft, you would have thought that baseball would have been a little bit more empathetic and say, all right, let's put them in. I don't know when, but what'll happen is you'll get a bunch of baseball players that will speak out and talk about how Pete Rose should have been put in years ago, that he had an addiction and gambling is an addiction, and he should be forgiven. He cleaned up his act and lived a good life and was one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived, hit king of all time, and he will be put in the Hall of Fame. And what'll happen is there'll be a movement, there'll be petitions. It's almost like the We Want Cody stuff. When the We Want Cody stuff came out, we immediately went on the show and said, that's being set up to all the fans. We want Cody, and WWE says, we listened to the fans, we heard you, and we're giving you what you wanted. There'll be a manufactured campaign, get Pete Rose back into the Hall of Fame, get back into the good graces of MLB. And then I'll get momentum. It'll become a big social media thing. And then MLB will say, look, we acknowledge everybody wants this, so we're going to put Pete in. Jose Canseco, I don't know. It might take 10, 20 years, because I think once they accept the fact that a shitload of Hall of Famers that are in the Hall of Fame now were also doing roids, just never got caught, I think that's when they'll maybe put him in like that Legends wing or something. But Pete Rose will go in before Canseco. Matt, I talked about this earlier about ECW. WWE, but I like your twist to it. Can WWE still appeal to ECW crowds with like a one-night stand? They can. The problem is this. ECW one-night stand happened in 05 and 06. That's only 4 and 5 years after ECW went out of business. So a lot of the original players from ECW can still go. We're now 24 years, almost 24 years, since ECW closed down. Those rabid ECW fans, including me, have not had the ECW product now for 2 decades. So you can create a hardcore title like Cross suggested recently, have an extreme title as a tribute to ECW, a tribute to Extreme Wrestling. But as far as a whole pay-per-view of it, they've been doing Extreme Rules for years. They have had pay-per-view themes where a lot of hardcore or, gimmick matches would happen. Fans will chant ECW, for years down the line. But the aura of ECW is gone. It's too many years. Like I said, it's going to be nice to see some of the people that I'm going to see Wednesday. There's a few other names that are going to be there that haven't been announced, and it's going to be nice to see them. But I also realize that somebody right now who is 25 years old was only one when ECW went out of business, or two. Somebody right now that's watching NXT on Wednesday, or if you do an ECW themed pay-per-view, a wrestling fan who was in their early 20s weren't even alive when ECW closed down. Fans in their 40s and 50s were in their 20s and 30s at that time. So, to bring back that aura, you could do it in a nostalgic way, but not as rabid as One Night Stand. And One Night Stand worked because a lot of wrestlers could still go. Football says they did a tribute to ECW in 2010. Yeah, it's almost 15 years ago. It sounds like it's not that long ago. 15 years is long. It's a long time. Once you get past 10 years, okay, let's say somebody wants to have a Lucha Underground event. One night only, Lucha Underground. There's enough wrestlers who are part of that if they were free agents or if their contracts would allow them to work a one night only, they could probably pull it off. But 10 years from now, people get like, oh, Lucha Underground, yeah, I remember that. It's like Wrestling Society X. Wrestling Society X was around after ECW, and you couldn't even pull that off now. You would not be able to use the same people. So no, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. There'd be a few people that would enjoy it, but you're going to try to attract the old ECW fans. Who wants an event that the biggest attracting fans are in between their 40s and their 70s? That's not the audience you're trying to gain. That's why I don't think I don't focus on demos, but that's why I don't think the demo on Wednesday is going to be that much different than normal weeks, because I don't think you're going to get a surge of 18 to 49ers that are going to say, oh my God, ECW legends, let me tune in. I just don't feel it. All right. Wrapping this up, Jeff says, what happened to cinematic matches? They don't need them right now. They don't need them right now. I mean, the cinematic matches happen more because of COVID. You really don't need it right now. I mean, look, they did the Wyatts and the New Day. They've done, when the time is right, I think the Wyatt 6 will do something cinematic. It's almost a given the Wyatt 6 will. It's just a question of who they do it with. Ox King, when do I think Roman will get the world title? Do I think he'll get it anytime soon? No, I don't. Could it happen in 2025? Yeah, but I don't see it right now. Roman Reigns is in the middle of reforming the bloodline and continuing that book, and now it's a little different because they're baby faces. They still have a lot of explaining to do, try to make it all make sense. So no, I don't see Roman Reigns winning world championship anytime soon. They don't need Roman as the figurehead right now. Roman Reigns is not the number one guy in that company right now. If they run into problems and Roman is needed to be in that position, then they could revisit that. But right now, Roman is not going to be world champion. So, all right. I'm going to jet out of here. We're almost at 2 hours, so I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. If everybody who was live, once again, my apologies for the technical difficulties earlier. That will be edited out for a majority of our video viewing audience of the replay. On the audio side, no issues. I mean, we just trim out that first 5 minutes. Just a reminder, Kevin and I will be live tomorrow night, Monday night at 10:15 p.m. in our Discord channel, dtkcdiscord.com. Big shout out to our channel members here on YouTube. Much love. And I absolutely enjoy doing those video versions of those other shows. So I appreciate all the feedback. And just understand when we put those opening videos, sometimes I got to be very, very selective and careful what goes up, because you'd be surprised how many times you get hit with copyrights. So many times, even like a 30-second video, although fun as hell, sometimes you get flagged. It's like, damn, I got to edit the whole thing all over again. So I appreciate all the support for our channel members here on YouTube. For everyone that is a viewer here, hit that subscribe button. You know, we want to get to 50,000. I know Kev would love to see it get to 50,000, and then we could consider expanding the channel a little bit, and just keep downloading all the shows. DTKC.com, DTKCshow.com, and we have a big week ahead of us. You know, I hope everybody was cool with the little bit of political talk tonight. I didn't want this to be a political podcast, but obviously something major is going down in the country I live in 48 hours. And I think it would be naive to not talk about it. And one of the most beautiful things that I could say in closing, and trust me, for everybody who's checking this out on the archive, you best damn believe this to be true. The reason why I was hoping you'd all vote that we have some political talk is because I wanted everybody to see, as an example, that we can have a big group of wrestling fans get together and not only just talk about wrestling, but we could get together and talk about the election level-headed, without name-calling and labeling people and profiling, and have just a straight-up conversation, even if you end up with, hey, I'm not voting for either one. But here, it's not, hey, I don't know you. So if you vote for one way or the other, I'm not going to immediately assume that you're a Nazi or you're this or you're a racist or you're that, you're this. I don't know you. It would be totally inappropriate for me to label you that way. I may not like your choice. I may even hate your choice. But that's the beauty of living in a free country. We are free to make choices. Maybe not popular ones, and sometimes maybe stupid choices. But I'm not going to label you of something disgusting and criminal. You know, I mean, I can't believe that people have kind of loosened up the term Nazi this much. So, Dean Parks with Johnny says, he sent me a milestone earlier. Did I get it? I don't believe I did, but let me go back and check before I exit. Let me look. Oh, I do see it. All right. And happy 33 months to you, my friend. I don't know why I didn't see this earlier, but we will close out with this. Theme Parks with Johnny says, I want to see Dirty Dom win a world championship from Gunther or Cody. I would love to see the heat he would get. I just want to see the world burn. He means the world of wrestling. You know, I don't think he means the country. And I'm sorry that you had to super chat me to make me aware of that. I didn't see it earlier. Listen, again, I appreciate Dominic Mysterio. Understand, let's be real for a second before we jet. Let's be real for a second here. If we're really going to be honest for a minute, Dominic Mysterio's storyline with Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan is stupid. Because we know Dominic Mysterio is happily married. We know Dominic Mysterio did not do anything sexually with Rhea Ripley. We do not even understand what was the relationship with Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio. And then Dominic Mysterio dumps Rhea Ripley. I wouldn't call it dumping Rhea Ripley. I would be calling it screwing Rhea Ripley out of the championship and aligning with Rhea Ripley's bitter foe. But that's too much to say in a sentence. So people are like, oh, he dumped Rhea for Liv. Dominic Mysterio ain't getting none from either of those women. And like I pointed out, isn't it like 2 months ago I pointed this out? Dominic kisses Liv Morgan like you kiss your dog. He kisses her forehead like a pet. Like if this is my dog, Dominic's like, he kisses her forehead like you would kiss like your mom. Hey, Ma, happy Mother's Day. You grab her by the head. Ah. That's not what you do. I don't care what outfit Liv Morgan is wearing. They, as they used to say, they ain't fucking. So when you really, really want to be honest, this storyline with Dom having relationships is dumb. They didn't need to go the relationship route with Dom and Liv. All they had to do is Dom screwed over Rhea Ripley and aligned with Rhea Ripley's bitter rival. But people want to play that perception that Dom is with Liv and Dom is shown in public with Liv. I mean, we know the truth about it. So if you want to be honest, the storyline is kind of flawed. But that's what makes Dominic Mysterio that much better. Because fans out there, he doesn't have go-away heat, guys. Even if you're still not on board with Dominic Mysterio, he does not have go-away heat. As Kev has pointed out, when Liv Morgan gets interaction with Rhea Ripley, you could hear somebody farting in section 400. But the minute Dominic comes out there, there's reaction from the crowd. Dominic Mysterio is great at what he does. And I do believe in the future he will win a world championship. I don't know when. I don't expect it anytime soon. But in the meantime, he will win a secondary title. But when he does, I could just picture that reaction. And guess what? I think enough fans will pop. I think fans will, sooner or later, the fans are going to start cheering for Dominic Mysterio. Because the more you see Dominic interacting outside of wrestling, guy's a cool dude. Guy actually does go out of his way for fans. You know, it's just that on camera, Dominic has got to keep some limitations to push that character. But as time goes by, more and more fans are starting to say, you know what, look, they're doing it with Cross right now. Cross, a lot of fans are starting to realize on social media, you know, he's actually a pretty cool dude. I actually want to see that guy, you know, go further with this. Now they're doing the stuff with the Wyatt Six, and he did that video in the hotel room about Miz. Oh, he's dead. Oh, that got over pretty well, you know. So as time goes by, more and more fans are going to get behind Dominic Mysterio. And remember when I said it, he one day is going to be a big baby face. I'm telling you, he's going to be a big baby face. And it's going to be interesting to see when that goes down. So, I don't know what the street value is of this. This is very, very heavy. I would say this is at least 10 pounds. It's all metal and stuff. When I did the episode of Monty and the Pharaoh, I accidentally hit myself in the mouth with it. And if you go back and you watch that replay, you'll see me go like this at least like a half a dozen times during the show. I honestly thought I cracked my tooth. It's not a light thing to have. That's why when I used to bring it down to ringside, you know, one time I was supposed to hit somebody with it, and you hit them with the back part of your hand. So if you hit someone, you go like this. So you hit them with the back part of your hand, but you get clipped with this, you're going to break somebody's teeth or break a bone. That is not serious. That is serious shit you don't want to mess around with that. So, all right, I'm out here. Much love. Everyone, let's see what happens on Raw tomorrow. I already read the spoilers. Not very excited about Raw, I'm going to be honest with you. But it's not going to take away from a great Monday night show Kevin and I will do. Tuesday, we'll see what happens with the election. You know, I have a good feeling which way it's going to go. We talked about it in last week's Patreon. You know, we'll see. Maybe we'll have a little conversation about it next Sunday just to follow up. I don't know. But I will tell you this. If we have any quick thoughts next Sunday about the election, hopefully after next Sunday, we don't have to talk about it for 4 more years. So be well, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll catch you all again soon.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.